music and secret things. Sound science.
Yo, welcome. It's another episode, Sound Science number 2. We're just still gonna slide it in because we're just warming up. So the thing that this is gonna be about is Doenut brought 5 albums, I brought 5 albums, and we're just gonna talk about how those albums influenced us, the lyrics behind it, the artwork, everything. So first of all, welcome Donuts, fans. Shout out in the comments. Come
Yo,
on
what
board.
up? Yo,
What
what
up?
up?
What
It's
up?
Jon, right? And you tuning in to Sound Science. And all your
You're on
Illuminati
fire.
dudes. Yeah, I gotta get in that. Yeah, thank
So
you for
you were
having me
telling
on.
me that before you start a show, you like to set yourself on fire mentally, right? To get into the mood. I keep forgetting to set myself on fire, but I'm gonna do it next time,
Right.
I promise.
So hip hop, you have to come with elements. There's elements to it. You know what I mean? So you got to have that energy, that hype man energy, right? That's one of the elements. And lyrics is another one, right? You got to have the wordplay. And so when I say like set yourself on fire, well, that's what I do before I do a live stream. I metaphorically set myself on fire because when you're on stage and you're performing, you want to be like that. If you look at somebody in the middle of the street walking, you're not going to care. But if you see someone on fire walking through the street, you're going to look at them. So it's going to, so that's the whole thing I do metaphorically before I go live. But yeah. I'm happy to be here. Your last episode was so great, and you brought up nonfiction as some of the albums and the album covers of nonfiction.
One of the first vinyl albums I ever got, and it came with the like a signed poster and everything. That's been one of the only things that I still own from my high school days. Almost everything else has been thrown away or lost or something. But I guarantee you that nonfiction album will go to the grave with me. Maybe I'll put you on my will. You can get my nonfiction album.
Right. So like that was a big part of my childhood. I got to see nonfiction perform in Vegas, and it was in a tent at Desert Breeze Park. And I was in middle school. And this is right when all my friends, we were about to get our license, our permits, and all we would do was listen to nonfiction, the double album, because it came with the instrumentals as well. And I got to later on meet Ill Bill, which was sick. But prior to that, I was very into Uncle Howie Records. And later on, I even got to do some video work on lyric videos for Necro. I got to do lyric videos for Gmo Ski, for Twisted, for a lot of people that I admired growing up, my heroes who were doing it underground. They were doing it independently. And so you bringing up those covers and all that was tight, because if you look at their covers, it's full of nonfiction, that is, like the song Black Helicopters. It's full of all those Illuminati type imagery.
Yeah, I mean, I give rap music a huge nod to kind of getting me into all of that, because I remember Kill Army would have quotes from like Jordan Maxwell, and some of the albums, a lot of Wu would have references to a lot of these things. I think because of the 5%er aspect, but it's a lot of it was pretty deep. And we're going to get into that because I'm going to open up some of the lyrics that I remember growing up with around that same time. And there was another really interesting coincidence too that we found out as we were talking, that you did some work for Necro and like that whole crew. And there was an album that I had worked on for.
Yeah, I did a lyric
Choppa.
video for Mr. Hyde as well, PLR. Yep. So I'm so grateful for the opportunity. I've done lyric videos for so many different artists. Mad Child. I did some video work with Underground Hustlin'. With that, I mean, Grammy artists. I even was mentored by one of Tupac's producers, the guy who produced strictly for I'm not gonna say the word, old Ice Cube and all that.
Ninjas.
So like, all I wanted to do was be in hip hop making music videos. But like you said, hip hop introduced me to the Illuminati in a sense, right? Illuminati don't want me. They want my mind, soul, body. Them lyrics
Yeah, shout out Prodigy.
and Tupac with his Killuminati. And what is that? And it introduced me into that topic. It also introduced me into power dynamics with Tupac rebranding himself as the Don Machiavelli. Well, what is Machiavelli? What is that? I bought the prints and I just started going to the bookstore every day. I couldn't read, but I would go and read the prints every day and I didn't understand it. So hip hop influenced me in these very, very positive ways of learning, but it also influenced me through the social engineering of going down some very dark ways as well, and cathartic experiences.
That's actually really cool to hear, man, that you ended up reading Machiavelli's The Prince because of a rap album. And I remember that reminds me, I did the same thing because in around 2000 around 2000, I think Shaheem came out with an album called Manchild. And it was based on a book called Manchild Born in a Promised Land about these kids growing up in sort of rough times. But it was an amazing book that I never even would have known or read about if it hadn't just been the name for an album. So I think that there's something really noble about that. And that's actually how I started this whole entire adventure. That's where Paranoid American came from. It came from a group called Sound Scientists. Shout out to all my other homies in it, Gasper and Smooth and Gravity and Polygraphic. But that was originally going to be this like thematic music experiment that we would take Jordan Maxwell and Alex Jones at the time, early 2000s, and all this different like William Cooper, the whole Pale Horse research, and put it into music videos or something. It worked way better as a cartoon / comic book series. But that's where all of this started from. And that's what I was saying too, is that a couple coincidences that I had done some music for In Decline, who did some like early graffiti and skateboarding.
In Decline. I grew up in Vegas, so that was one of my early. Those guys would party with my babysitter. You know what I mean? So I'd be being babysit, and in the backyard, those guys were partying. I must have been like 10 years old or whatever, but they created bum fights, and that was huge in Vegas. I mean, they were spray painted it everywhere you see it. It was crazy filming the fight, and I grew up in Vegas. So I imitated that. I started filming stuff, filming all the fights because Vegas is crazy, especially in the 90s and 2000s. I'm not sure about now. I'm sure it is. But that's crazy that you were, Bling Bling, right? I had his album.
Yeah, bro. I think I had some music on the album and on the DVD. It was called Bling Bling's Bling Along. I think that's what it was called. And it was like making fun of a sing-along style video. But my music was in all the menu, like the DVD menus. As you surf through the DVD, that was all the music I had sent to In Decline. So it's an interesting connection. And the same one with Necro, where Choppa Reed, who was like an Australian gangster who also has a movie based on him called Choppa, starring Eric Bana. Great movie. But I also helped with the production on that album, which was spearheaded by Necro. So like it seems like we'd always been just like 1 degree of connection away, even like 10 years ago, even when your babysitter was like wilding out in the backyard.
Right. So my babysitter, prior to that babysitter, introduced me into Bow Down, West Side Connection, right? So that was very early on in elementary school. So my babysitter would take us to Sizzlers or whatever and play Bow Down. And I thought it was so cool. But prior to that, my first music was cassette tapes, and it was Warren G and Nate Dogg, Regulators, and Coolio, Fantastic Voyage. Those were my first 2 musical items I've ever owned.
So how you want to do this? Do you want me to do an album? You do an album? You want to start? You want me to start?
I guess
I can
It's
kick it
your
off.
it's your show.
All right, so I'll start with my first album here, and then we'll let you go to one so we can like bounce back and forth. So the first one that I really want to suggest, if anyone's ever even heard of this one, is called Mood. And this felt like an undiscovered gem when I found it. It was in like some bookstore. It wasn't like a big box one. It was just like some little mom and pop bookstore when I was going to DC, and we had pulled off somewhere in Virginia, and this was just in their CD bin. And I looked in the back and I saw that it had High Tech on it. It had Talib Kweli on it. It had Sons of Man, and I knew who all these people were already. So I snatched it up. And there was another one called Prehistoric Sounds, which was also Mood. And another crazy thing, man, is that I end up working with Mainflow for a little while, who's in Mood, because he had something called Elite Squad or Mainflow Elite. But so, anyways, this one has, you can already see it's got that 6-pointed star on the front. It gets real deep into like esoteric and religion, and but it's got sort of like a really classic 1997 sound to it. So High Tech's one of the producers. If you don't know who High Tech is, definitely check him out. It's got Talib Kweli on it. Definitely check him out. If you don't know who that, you probably do. It's got Sons of Man on it. It's got 60-Second Assassin and Prodigal Son. I don't know if Killer Priest is actually on this one, but Sons of Man technically is Prodigal Son, Killer Priest, Hellraiser, 60-Second, and then they had Shabazz the Disciple. Also has really good album. So here's one of the songs on it called Esoteric Manuscripts, and just one of the little link. And again, this is 97, so I was like 13, I think 13 or 14 when I first heard this. And this is talking about skies of Goliath with giant walking the lands. And they're talking about my body's a temple, keep it cleansed. That's obviously like a very sort of like religious stance. My energy source from the herbal medicines deep within. I kind of related to that at 13. At the 13th tribe, I turn to be a scribe once again. Sun in the sky, eggs rise, checking the retina, never lies. Like all of these different lyrics, I remember this in direct contrast with everything else that was coming out around like 97, which I think was a little bit of Cash Money. Like no shade on Cash Money because I liked it too, but that was kind of like the polar dichotomy between the options in my eyes. So this was a really good one. There's a couple others. This was from Sacred, and this has got a really good line in here. And this is Dante from Mood, and he's talking about certain priests bear the mark of the beast, came in the names of peace, and then they teach down with police. Like this whole entire phrase is, and the whole song is kind of about like religion and the police state and everything kind of like collaborating together. And then this one is called Secrets of the Sand, and he's talking about the heavens most modest plans from a seventh goddess rebuilding land where the sand is hottest. And then he says the oddest Yorks and Scottish posing like they know who God is. And this was so hot. Like I had no idea what that meant when I first had heard it, 97, I'm 13. But now looking back, he's talking about the Odd Fellows, he's talking about the York Rite, and he's talking about the Scottish Rite. And then he's even kind of like making this very valid criticism about they are making some kind of claim at they know what God is. And that is like, to have that in just these two lines right here is incredible, because this conveys so much information. Like, I don't know, man, like this right here, you would have to
This is before Wikipedia.
This is before Wikipedia, and this is also the type of information that no one was just like spitting around back then. You actually had to read this out of a book. Like this is some Jordan Maxwell, Manly Palmer Hall. Like I don't know where it necessarily came from. I've been trying to get Mainflow for interviews, so hopefully we can get them.
That's so
and then
dope.
and then there's one other one called Illuminated Sunlight, and this is also, it's just talking about how history lied, troops came around, they had to come in disguise. And then it says free energy dwells in deep thoughts like wells, let it work for you, buy and sell. So and this is that whole concept of, we've talked about this before, about energy and currency is a currency. Shout out Jordan Maxwell with the whole aspect of maritime law and mercantilism just being a way to channel energy around. And that's exactly what we're talking about here. Energy deep in thoughts like wells. Like that's like that loosh energy, right? And it basically just gets translated into the normal economic system. But it's this line here of like, let it work for you, buy and sell. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading like way too deep into this, but I really do feel that this is an incredibly deep album that got heavily slept on, because I don't know if it got like major airplay from anybody.
Yeah, I didn't hear about it.
Well, you did now. You got no excuses to not go and check out
I'm gonna
this
check it
album.
out. Yeah, because when I saw Doom, I think MF Doom. But Sons of Man, I gotta do I did a live video production, and Kill a Priest. I filmed a Kill a Priest thing. I even got a picture up on the screen right here. You could share it. I don't know if he's up in it, but that's me when I was younger and when I was stoned and whatnot. But I did the video production there. I look so stupid. I'm gonna change that. But I did music videos for a group called Vendetta Kings out here in Arizona, and Kill a Priest. They got me connected with him. Killa won't even remember me probably, but I did some video work. It was so cool, that's like Wu-Tang, Wu-Tang Killer Bees. And even I did some video work for Willie North Pole 15 years ago, and he was like on DTP. He was like with Ludacris, and most recently he hit me up and was like, yo, you got to get up on Bro Sanchez. I'm a big fan of yours. And I'm like, yo, Willie, it's me. Remember, I'll film your music video. We got pulled over and he got arrested. And then he's like, oh my gosh, that was you. So hopefully I get to go up on that show too soon. But thank you for sharing that. That was tight. For me, with the music and whatnot, the lyrics, it also goes into the video. The video aspect is very connected to everything in the imagery, from style, fashion to the music video. So this was my first tape ever, and it was because the music video, everyone was coming out of the trunk, if you remember that.
This was a great video. This was like one of those summertime jams.
Summertime jams. My dad would listen to it with me. He didn't. Coolio was saying, because it was rap, so it was like so many words at once. And then Coolio later on became a Juggalo, and then he talked about some Illuminati stuff as well, which is kind of interesting how things progress. And then I bought these two albums, these tapes. This is my first music. And then my first CD was Yellow Submarine. So it was my first CD.
What made you get the Yellow Submarine?
Look at that cover.
Is that what it was though? Because I just remember in the late 90s or even in the early 90s, there was a huge push to get like the youth into the Beatles. Like if you walked up into a Hot Topic, it was like Marilyn Manson and Beatles stuff. It was almost like you went left and you went into like the goth section, or you took a right and it was all about like your parents' nostalgia repackaged towards, like your age. And I always wondered that, like the Beatles, like people that loved it, it felt so fabricated. Even when I was in school, and I remember people being like all into it, it just felt like, oh, did you just wander into that section of Hot Topic and that's how you came across it? And I know that's not how everyone comes across the Beatles, but it was this interesting sort of dynamic at the time.
My mom was a Deadhead. My dad loved Led Zeppelin. My mom bought me a guitar and said, you're learning how to play Riders on the Storm, the Doors. So I was introduced to this. This is like first grade. So it was before I went into a Hot Topic that I was getting into the Beatles. But I know what you mean. Hot Topic is a fabricated reality. It's giving you that choice to be a Republican. You could be a Republican here at Hot Topic, or you can be a Democrat over here at
Yeah, which aisle do you
Old
want?
Navy. Yeah. Yeah. So it was chosen rebellion in a sense. They gave you the options, so everybody just follows an order, just like a lemming, and you know what I mean. Um, but I bring this up because the Beatles, this album was made to program the minds of the masses into the schizogenic drugs of mind control with LSD. And the hip hop world did that as well with tobacco and weed, right? Weed being a harmless like substance unless you have addiction problems, let's say. Um, like you can't OD on it. But you mix tobacco with it, then it becomes addicting, right? So people smoking blunts like myself at the time, 8 years sober now, but you don't realize how you get addicted to it. I think that was intentional. Um, yeah.
Well, there was a
Like
lot of like I remember because of rap music. I think I blame a lot of this on rap music. There was almost debates over white owls versus Phillies, and like, oh no, we use Dutch Masters, or it would almost be like these cliques would latch on, and the brand loyalty between cigarettes, right? Some people are like, no, Newports are like what the real rappers smoke, and it almost inspired people to take this counterculture brand loyalty. And that one hurt. That one I understand because I smoked for a long time. I started when I was like 12 or 13 and I quit, I don't know, like late 20s, maybe early 30s. But it was like a very hard thing to overcome because I'm reading about conspiracies all the time and like all these corporations and like they want you dead and they just want your money and they don't care about you and they're doing these horrible things. And then it's like I felt like I was actively funding it constantly. Like every time I went to the gas station and pointed at whatever brand that I was into, it just felt like, man, this money's going to go right back into some marketing to get me back in the store again, isn't it? Like it's this like self-perpetuating thing. Which
I
I
was,
don't know. I feel like
I was
the
a
music
Pe-
industry is like this too.
yeah, I was a Peach Optimo guy myself.
See,
Um,
everyone remembers what like their brand loyalty was when it came to blunts, and I really do think that was like a hip hop thing because there was rappers coming out with like the Phillies, like Bubble Goose, jackets, or they would be shouting it out in the lyrics, and people singing along. Now all of a sudden, when you go and buy a cigar, you already know what brand you're gonna get because you were just hearing it in the car as this like mantra over and over.
yeah, and like so, like I was I'm in elementary school at the time, right? During all these albums, so that wasn't on my agenda just yet. Getting introduced to those things. What was on my agenda was girls, right? And then Beastie Boys, right here. They got that song "Girls" on here, but this album influenced me like very, very highly because of all the hits, right? I mean, this is a legend classic hip hop album, Paul Revere. Um, yeah. Uh, and I like how there's the subliminal message in it that I didn't know until lately, where it says "eat me" right there.
Oh, I never even noticed that.
Yeah, it says "eat me" backwards. But but yeah. So like in the beginning, there was rap too. Was one of my first albums as well. This was all happening at the same time.
So this looks familiar. What is this? What album is this? Is this
Yeah,
a
so
various
this
album or?
it's a various album. We had Bone Thugs, but what they were doing was remixing all the classics. So I got to learn all the classic songs, right? Like NWA, F the Police, right? It was in there, but it was Bone Thugs doing it because I was born in 88. So a lot of music was this is when it was being released. But this album influenced my life to be more political of saying F the police, right? So he had a
How old were
huge
you when you started singing along to F the Police?
I believe this must have been when. Let me see when it came out. I'm guessing it was second grade. It came
That's
out in
awesome.
1997, so I was like 10, 11 years old.
Okay, this is the same when Mood came out, the same year, 97.
Yeah, because in the fourth grade, like I said, this Bow Down, huge influence. 1996, Cottonmouth Kings. This was the fourth grade. Cottonmouth Kings, Eminem, Big Willie style. Right? These were like the three albums that I got in the fourth grade.
That's wild. I'm just trying to compare my like third to fourth grade music experience, and I'm pretty sure it was like MC Hammer had just released the Adams Family started the Adams Family Values tour, and he was on tour with Boys to Men. That was one of the first concerts I ever went to. Was a Boys to Men MC Hammer. Vanilla Ice was huge. Snow was really huge. I don't even think the Eminem was even close to being out yet. I think like the Eminem of my third grade was Vanilla Ice.
Yeah, I saw MC Hammer too legit to quit. I've seen him live in Vegas. When you grow up in Las Vegas, somebody said Kid Rock's went to Bohemian Grove. Would
I didn't
not
know
doubt
that.
that because you got Taylor Swift being a psyop, right? But the thing that most people don't want to talk about is Kid Rock is a psyop too, right? Taylor and Kid Rock, both psyops. But yeah, so this was fourth grade. I remember very vividly my best friend, he bought me this album, which was promoting, dopest album. And I saw the premiere music video of this on MTV, right? So John Lennon was the King Kill ritual being taken out, being whacked. And then a year later, Video Killed the Radio Star MTV was released. So I grew up on the music videos, and I saw this music video air in the fourth grade, the first time it premiered. Hi, my name is. And that whole Dr. Dre programming was to be anti-father and to push pharmaceutical industry. So you got Cottonmouth Kings, which was pushing a political agenda when you look into the lyrics. And I got to do work with them as well as an adult, but it was all weed all over the cover. And then Eminem, it's a Vicodin on the cover and anti-father stuff in a Big Willie style.
Wait, what? Where is the Vicodin on the cover?
Let's see.
Oh, I thought you meant on that Slim Shady album.
Yeah, it's on the record. It's on the CD.
Okay.
Yeah. But this all goes into the social engineering messaging behind everything that plays a big role. Minus the skills and all that. I'm not talking about the skills. I'm just talking about kind of what I've noticed.
And Big Willie style, was this the Y2K, right?
This is 1997.
Okay,
Yeah.
this is before that. This is
getting jiggy with it.
Okay.
Yeah, getting jiggy with it.
This was like the revival of Will Smith. That's funny because my first CD ever was a Fresh Prince and Jazzy Jeff CD. I don't even remember what the name of it was, but it was like real early 90s.
Yeah, but now I'm looking at the music video. He's performing in Las Vegas at the Pyramid, right? The Pyramid that Tupac was staying at when he got murdered in Las Vegas. And Will Smith has got a connection to Tupac with Jedi. And
that's right.
Right. So there might have been something going on there, but he released the Men in Black movie, right? So it's also hinting at this upcoming alien invasion, the false one, with all that technology. And then just the two with us with Austin Powers. I mean, it was all pretty big.
That's actually a really great. I mean, it seems really obvious now, but Will Smith and Men in Black is, I guess, one of the earlier like mainstream hip hop conspiracy like projects, right? Because that one got a lot of attention, and it was ultimately about a very real conspiracy of Men in Black. Like that, this movie and his music behind it made Men in Black like a household name. That now, like if you say it now, people probably think about the movie before they think about the conspiracy. So I don't. Maybe there's some engineering behind that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so this is like fourth grade. So I'm kind of just going through the history of my social engineering. I'm not really getting like into the lyric part yet because it wasn't about lyrics yet as much as it was about angst, desire, and then fourth grade, fifth grade, all about girls being cool, being popular. And then I was introduced to Insane Clown Posse.
And that's where it all started to go down.
And yeah, this is where everything changed. This is probably so that was like the first influential programming of my brain. And then it took another leap of consciousness.
Yeah, well, it went from like pure commercial, here's what the music industry wants you to listen to. And I guess ICP was also very commercial, like, you know, Disney was kind of behind him in a way. But this was like this feels like a stark contrast from the Beatles.
It is and it isn't. So what got me into the earlier stuff was the sounds. It was cool. It was fun. It was rebellious. There was curse words. It was like, oh, this is so cool. But ICP was different. ICP had a belonging. They had juggalos. So it wasn't even ICP that got me into ICP. It was the juggalos causing havoc. You had all these cool kids that were older than me. My mom took me to my first ICP concert in like 1999, 2000. So I was a little kid. And I saw a group of these cool kids because I'm in elementary school, you know, and they're all teenagers causing havoc, jumping up and down, painted up. And I was like, that is so attractive. What is that? And then and then you see this Jake Jekyll Joker card on their tour bus, larger than life, you know. And then that album was released, and I got my hands on that album, and they got songs like F the World. So it just said the F word over and over again. It talked about killing. It talked about all these things as I'm going into middle school, right? From fifth grade to middle school, where you got your hormones kicking in, you're fighting 24/7, fighting kids all the time. I don't know. And it was kind of a perfect, I wouldn't even say escape, even though that too, but it was like a perfect, I can go to war now. With anyone talking shit.
This is an interesting topic for me because I always wondered if ICP was created and targeted like specifically at kids or specifically at, you know, like angsty teens down. Because I mean, maybe I'm just being really ignorant, but I'm imagining ICP comes out and I'm 40 or I'm like, you know, 45, 50. It doesn't appeal at all. It feels like it is made almost custom tailored for a very specific demographic. Not that every other kind of music isn't like that, but this one was almost like on its sleeve. It was such a very specific moment in time. And I don't know, it felt very manufactured in so many different ways.
You know, this is a very interesting topic, but ICP, they did such a good service to hip hop. They don't get the credentials, but they will in the future. They introduced all the Juggalos and audience to Bushwick Bill, Ghetto Boys, Two Live Crew, just stuff that a 12-year-old wouldn't know about at their concert, introduced into that whole hip hop realm. So they did a good history lesson with it all. And around this same time as when Juvenile right here came out. So it was ICP and Juvenile. This was just as influential as anything else.
Whoa. Back up. No, that was the bad Juvenile joke.
So do you remember this album, 400 Degrees?
Yeah, of course. Right? Wasn't it? This was Back That Thing Up.
Yes. So this is Back That Ass Up, right? Back That Thing Up. My bad.
What was the other one too?
It was AZZ. What's up?
There was another song too where he said like "huh" at the end of every single line. I just can't remember what that one was.
That's you with that badass band, son. That's you that can't afford old lady because you keep dodging the friends, son. You want to go to one. You can't pay that child support. That one, that nerve on. You ain't got a chance to say a word on. I ain't no tripping. Ain't nobody got them birds on. Yeah.
All right, we got some bars out of Doenut. No one knew if it was gonna happen, but it happened.
The craziest thing about that song is I know all the lyrics to that song. Dopest song ever. But it's like one of the realest songs ever too. He's talking about like real issues that you don't know about until like you kind of grow up. That's you with that badass bench, huh? That's you that can't keep old lady because you keep fucking no friends, huh?
Aw. That's a good point, man. A lot of these songs, they became little earworms, right? And they had like flashy music videos, and it turned into like, again, hot topic sort of things. But if you go and you actually look at the lyrics, especially now, and you rewind it back, it was pretty intense, man. Especially for a little 11-year-old Doenut to be singing along to.
It was pre bar mitzvah because I remember I would listen to this and I would walk the temple after school. I went to I went to school and I walked the temple after it, and I would show the rabbis this Juvenile, and they would listen and they'd be like, "What the heck are you listening to?" So I was a kid, yeah. But this is after this 400 Degrees. Lil Wayne, he dropped 500 Degrees, right? A little bit hotter than Juvie's. And Lil Wayne, he was in Back That Ass Up with this album, and he's the guy who created the word bling bling. And in Back That Ass Up, he created Drop It Like It's Hot, Drop It Like It's Hot, right? That Snoop Dogg took. And that's probably the most popular song. They'll play that song at a wedding. When the pimp's in the crib now, drop it like it's hot, drop it like it's hot. That's Lil Wayne. Every time That's Lil Wayne, though. He came up with that when he was like 12 or 13 or 14.
I think it's wild too that they never copyrighted or trademarked that whole bling bling phrase, and it became part of everybody's well, I guess a small demographics vernacular for the next 5 to 6 years. Like that was everywhere, man. And people still know what bling means as like in terms of, jewelry within like a hip hop context. I think largely just because of that song. It's wild how like these rap songs in particular end up creating new words that end up in the the dictionary, and then people start using it later on. Like imagine little Lil Wayne, or I guess shout out to Pukey Pete, but it was actually what Baby invented it, either or, right? Like this came out of the Hot Boys. Like the Hot Boys now have a word in the dictionary, or because of the Hot Boys there's a new word in the dictionary. That's wild that we live in that reality.
Yeah. And Lil Wayne is interesting too, because like my life went from I wanted to be cool, grad cool music, stoner music. Um, and this is like prior to me doing drugs or drinking. You know what I mean? I'm listening to this music and it was awesome. ICP, I was sober. I was a kid, I was sober. And then eventually I wasn't. But
Do you
on the
blame
top of
music at all? Do you blame music for your interest in dabbling?
it definitely had an influence in it, but I don't blame it for it. But it has its purpose in each genre. So hip hop, they do different drugs than rock and rollers. People drink different beers. People take different. The kids today, they're on pharmaceuticals, so it's all about uh, heroin, synthetic heroin for kids. That's like today, and that's why they're all like falling asleep, and it reflects in the music. So if you listen to the music today, it's very you won't relate to it if you're not on those substances. Kind of like Chopped and Screwed. Chopped and Screwed is all about being on a certain uh, heroin to be into it.
Yeah, that's that codeine. Shout out DJ Screw. That was actually another weird detour that I had in music, because when I joined the military, I got shipped off to San Antonio. Out even after basic training, I stayed in San Antonio, and right around San Antonio, I found out that that's where Cypress Hill had gotten big, and then you go out into like the Houston areas, and that was all like Screwville. That was when like Baby Bash and Paul Wall and Mike Jones, he had his like phone number out on everything. They were huge at that was another like really interesting specific moment in time.
Yeah. Well, that's why I got my Gucci shades all up in my braids when I escalade. The whole reason I wear these glasses because of still tipping off fofos. With that Mike Jones, Slim Thug, mostly though. So Lil Wayne, this is kind of an interesting thing because I went from Vegas to moving to a whole new town at 17, senior year in high school. And I remember moving to Arizona, and it wasn't like In Decline, right? Bum fights. It wasn't as violent here in Arizona. So you can go to a house party and not worry about seeing people get put in the hospital. Arizona was awesome. They had keggers. I was introduced to hieroglyphics, Del the Funky Homo Sapien. People had a genuine love for hip hop out here in Arizona. In Las Vegas, it was just a tool for warfare. That's what it felt like. It was a tool you listened to go to war with society. Everything was about power and fighting and whatever. And when I was in Arizona, I was getting introduced to all this different hip hop, everybody freestyling, it was really cool. And the big two freestylers was Cassidy and Lil Wayne. And I was like, man, that's some mainstream. I was Juggalo, I was like, F anything mainstream. And
That's kind of hard to do though, man, because you think that you're saying F everything mainstream, and then you end up getting an album and it's just like produced by like this. It's just a little ancillary thing, right? It's the counterculture version of the mainstream that the mainstream still has all sorts of control over.
absolutely. But this is 17-year-old me. This is over
Yeah.
20 years ago. And I was just in this like fake phase in my head. And then I got introduced my one of my best friends. He was like gangster. He's dead now, rest in peace. But he was the best freestyler ever. And he had my back too a lot of times. So like we were really close. And then he's like, "Oh, I listen to Lil Wayne," and I giggled. I'm like, "Lil Wayne, what?" And he's like, "Nah, listen to his lyrics. He doesn't even cuss because he was a kid. His mom wouldn't let him cuss on the records." So
I like that.
you have to have skill to do that. And so I started listening to him, and then this album came out when I was a senior, and it was like I was watching a movie or something. And then I became a huge Lil Wayne fan.
And I never liked Lil Wayne until by my own fault, but I didn't like anything that he put out because of the whole Hot Boys thing. Like, it was so like antithetical to the music that I thought was superior, right? Like the underground, like all of like the Wu affiliates and very hard East Coast. And it took a long time, and it was only after I started hearing remixes and got like a few little Lil Wayne phrases in my ear. And then ironically, it was a song he had with Kodak Black, and they're talking about he's got like a neutron on his pinky. I can't remember the name of the song, but that one got stuck in my head so hard that I had to go back through and re-listen to some of the Lil Wayne catalog and got like a new appreciation for it. But he's a very polarizing figure. Even when he had first come out in the Hot Boys, it was still like a very polarizing sound. Like it was almost like either he's on like some next level, like he's either transcendent, or this is like the worst music that's ever been released. It was like one of those two options.
Yeah, well, his lyrics he's one of the greatest lyricists. And it sounds funny and I understand if someone's like, "What are you talking about?" Anyone who like is into Lil Wayne and rap, they'll know like he's got skills.
That's
And
true. I retract all of the hate that I had in the late 90s and early 2000s for Lil
yeah,
Wayne.
and I became the biggest Lil Wayne fan ever. He was all about making that paper, and his lyrics painted a picture. And every time you would listen to him, it would go from one picture to another picture to another picture. And he comes off like, "Oh, I'm just freestyling." He's coming off like, "I don't work hard. And most of these rappers, they do this. Especially Lil Wayne, comes off like he's not putting in any effort. And this is a magician's trick where they do all this hard work. They're working hard. They're riding. They got skills. They're practicing. Lil Wayne would go through every single mixtape. He would drop free mixtapes. He would get all the top songs and redo their raps, rewrite them. But he would say it was a freestyle. But it wasn't. He just said that, in my opinion, and I'm pretty sure I'm correct.
I don't think anything's a freestyle. I've worked with enough artists that I don't believe freestyles exist. I mean, it gets into like a semantic debate.
It is a semantic debate, but my friends, there's some freestyles though, but it comes with writing and practice too. So
it's more, I guess in my mind, it's more of like people have a whole bunch of like little prearranged like snippets, right? And they can quickly rearrange those snippets in their mind. But if you hang out with one rapper for long enough, like, and I say long enough, it's probably like a month or two, and go and listen to them do a whole bunch of different freestyle battle, sessions, I would say a large majority, like 90% plus, you're going to hear like the same little phrases thrown out here and there and rearranged, which I feel like there's no way around that. But kind of like you're saying, like there's a huge part of this to make it seem effortless or make it seem like it's always just like straight off the dome.
Yeah. So like the magician's trick is that the rappers make it seem like they're just hanging out, smoking and doing nothing. No. Lil Wayne, he was working out. He got the nice body, right? You know what I mean? He got the Bentley. He put the work in, working out, skateboarding, whatever it was, writing, putting out free mixtapes, studying all the other rappers, taking risks in music. And but when you see him on the music video, they're just like, yeah, no, like they're not doing anything. But they're putting in a lot of hard work, but it doesn't seem like that. And that's the trick. And he's got this lyric. I could go into lyric that I really like. He said,
You rap it?
Birdman. Yeah, I don't want it on the big screen.
Oh,
But
okay.
he said, Birdman, put him in the trash can. Leave him outside your door. I'm your trash man. I'm staying lining up the hash and riding in my Jag. You will see a gas mask, man. You snakes, stop hiding in the grass, or the chopper blade will come down and put them blades in your ass. You homo getting AIDS in the ass while the young dude here trying to get paid in advance. I'm staying on my grizzly. I'm a bona fide hustler. Play with me or play with me. I'll go find your mother. So, like, what I liked about that, obviously, I don't condone any of the things that he was saying or anything, but the way that he went from image to image was genius, where he says, Birdman, who was his mentor, Birdman, put him in the trash can, right? So you're chopping up a dead body, putting it in the trash can, leave him outside your door. I'm your trash man. I'm here to be a service, to dispose the body. So he goes from Birdman, put him in a trash can, leave him outside your door. I'm your trash man. I'm steady lighting up the hash and riding in my Jag. You'll need a gas mask, man. So he went from like going to the place. It was like all images in my head. It was just so amazing.
Not everyone in the comments is an absolute fan of rap, and that's okay. We're
but
starting out on rap. We're getting
for
there.
sure. We're going over rap. If you want to go over down to the punk thing, I've been in punk, hardcore. I'm a big into music, but we're doing hip hop today.
Yeah, we'll get into all the different genres.
Yeah.
So what's I remember Lil Jon coming out onto the scene, and this was another one, man, that it hurt. Like, it almost felt, because I guess at this time too, I was actively trying to make something in the music industry. This was right around when I started getting music placed on like MTV and Adult Swim and stuff, like the little bumpers between the cartoons. So I felt like I was just starting to get a little bit of traction, and all we needed was a little bit of attention and work with the right artist. And Lil Jon at this exact moment was like blowing up. Like, his music was getting incredibly popular in all the clubs and the radio stations, and it almost felt like this was the god you wanted to box with, you know what I mean? At least in terms of just like the sheer amount of airplay and attention it was getting. So and it made me a hater a little bit of Lil Jon, because it felt like it wasn't as noble. You know what I mean? Like, in a really cheesy way.
So I was a junior in high school when this album came out. And this has a huge effect on the culture when this came out. This was a huge power dynamic shift of the branding of the drugs to be utilized for the youth, for high school kids going into college. And because that's who's going to influence, like I was influenced by the older juggalos. This is going to influence the younger crowd. Then Lil Jon turns out to rock the vote, to influence the vote. So it's all connected in the power dynamic. Even the symbolism of here, he's on the checkerboards, but he's a tarot card, right? This is tarot imagery. So there's symbolism that shows that it's much deeper than just getting crunk. But when this album came out, it was nuts. It was nuts. It was like it was just like cussing. It was just crazy. And I just remember the vibe of it in my high school in Vegas. People were getting wild when this came out. They would play it in class and people jumping on desk. You could see something was happening.
Do you think Lil Jon had anything to do with this being symbolic, or do you think this was like the graphic designer?
This was definitely a power dynamic at play. I mean, you had Usher, who opens the Super Bowl. You have Ice Cube, and he's, I believe, come out to talk about the CIA connections with that. This was a mixtape of all the biggest artists. So, and like how you said, how it was being pushed, it was absolutely a psyop, but it was fun. It was a fun psyop, for a high school kid.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. It's not intelligent lyrics at all, like nonfiction.
And not everything has to be, because I remember too that nonfiction in particular, along with a host of other music, kind of got classified as like backpack rap. Like this was backpacker underground stuff, and it usually you could tell by the amount of syllables that would be in a word, or like just the topic that they would kind of rap about, the difference between like this underground backpack versus, because there was even underground versions of like Lil Jon, and like you would even say DJ Screw for a really long time. That was underground until it wasn't anymore. You know what I mean? But it was a little different than the difference between like nonfiction style underground.
And they were talking about conspiracies, black helicopters, all that. And yeah, so I'm happy. And like all I listen to now, like I'm talking about like my life, you know what I mean? But the only rap I listen to now is, I guess it's considered backpack rap, right? It's got to be lyrics. I'm all about lyrics and aggression. So it's got to be aggressive.
Yeah, I
But
want to
on
know
my
about Esham. I never really listened to Esham, but I know he was like tangential to a lot of the artists that I did listen to.
Yeah, so another full circle. That's why all the stuff that it all connects, because you wouldn't have Eminem, right, without Esham, the Unholy. You wouldn't have ICP without Esham. Esham, this album right here is Bruce Wayne, and it was all about hustling and all about making money. And I was so sick of school at 15, I stopped going, and I would leave and I would listen to this album. That's all I did. That's what I did for school, was this album.
And what year does this album come out?
This album came out a long time ago. So it was an older album.
It was
but
it says Gotham City 87, but it came 97. Okay.
Yeah. So I really like this album.
That's why a lot of the albums we brought up today have all been 1997.
Yeah. And I don't really listen to these albums much anymore. This is teenager Alex. You know what I mean?
If you put this on now, what kind of mood does it put you in? Do you want to go and
no, it'll make me
what?
get it'll make me get like it'll bring back memories. I'm like, oh man, I remember that. Oh, you know what I mean? But now I'm creating new memories.
You have a favorite conscious rapper?
I don't like conscious rap.
You like unconscious rap?
I like unconscious rap. I like, yeah. What I really like, no, it's not I like a little unconscious rap, because I need to escape. I do so much reading and research. I need to go dumb for a minute, you know? And, but my friend, he's a classical composer, and he was telling me that rap music, the way it's formatted, puts you in a hypnosis, because classical music, you have a beginning, a middle, a climax, and an end. That's why they want kids to listen to Mozart and stuff like that, because it's putting the dots together. It's in hip hop and probably all other music, puts you in a hypnosis where it doesn't have that beginning, middle, and end. It's just verse lyric.
I mean, yeah, but you already know this, because we've been working on a pamphlet that I won't talk too much about, but it's a pamphlet on the Illuminati, and all of the this one is wild to me, right? That all of the classic musicians that most people hear about when they go to school or when they learn, when someone says like I'm a classically trained, they end up playing Bach and Mozart and Beethoven and all these names, right? That are like household names. And they were all freaking either Freemasons or more likely Bavarian Illuminati or Illuminati tangent. And not just throwing that out there, not like Jay-Z's in the Illuminati. Like this is actually Mozart being in the very real but very Illuminati, and maybe getting taken out because of it. But the point being that so much of that classical, like, you know, the Baby Einstein music, so much of that was kind of created by, I don't know if it was Freemasons and Illuminati, but it was created with this like a structure and like a rule set. Like, you can't just sit down and start doing classical music. You got to go and get like a PhD, and you have to learn from like the masters. Like, it's very gate kept, right? It almost has this Prussian model system where you almost have to get degrees in order to be able to say that you're a professional, you're a master of your craft, right? And hip hop and rap kind of turned all that on its head, because that like hypnotic beat you're talking about, now we're talking about like an inherent thing that just like draws you to it. Like, you just inherently get into a beat of something. It's just what makes it hypnotic. Whereas the classical music, it was so much more structured. So it's like they're two different types of programming. One of it like gets right into that hypnotic state, right? It's almost like delta waves. But then the classical version, it feels like it's also programming. It's just like it's like a higher level programming that is meant to have you expect something slightly different, because music's all about setting expectations and then subverting it, or sometimes matching those. And like the matching the expectation is that feeling that people get when they're like, I just want to hear a song I can sing along to, because they know what words coming next and they know what bridge is coming next. And I think that the combination of those, because now with modern music, you've got the hypnotic part, and that end up being the chorus or the hook or like a break beat is a really great example, because like a lot of people were mentioning in the comments that the 70s was like some of the best music, and those you had the structure of a classical song, but then it would break down and then get into that hypnotic section, and then it would resume and go right back into like a natural song structure. So I think it's all programming up and down, like no one's free of it.
Yeah. So this album right here, when I moved to Arizona, this was my friend, right? I didn't have any friends.
This guy on the cover was your friend?
No, the album was,
Okay.
because I moved to Arizona. I'm an angry kid. I'm punching drywall.
How thick is
I
this drywall?
got anger problems. And this album came out, and it's like the beats, it's Jedi mind tricks. So Vinny Paz is one of, right now, my favorite lyricist. Delivery and beats and all that, all the elements. But he would bring up stuff like he'd bring up Che Guevara in a rap, or the Torah, and I'm just like, what? Like, he was Muslim, like in a like, so he bring up Allah too, and I'm just like, just stuff that I've never heard rappers talk about. In the music I would listen to, so I was like, whoa, this is crazy. And then he brought up Uncle Howie records in it, and like, that's nonfiction, you know, that's Necro, Ill Bill, like the stuff that I grew up listening to. And I was like, whoa, that's so cool. Another rapper knows who that is, because I mean, this is like a long time ago. We didn't have cell phones and stuff like that. So when you heard another rapper who's very talented likes another rapper you like, is crazy. And then they started Heavy Metal Kings with Ill Bill and Vinny Paz. So that was tight too. But I'm just all about the aggression in music.
I feel like the Jedi Mind Tricks Violent by Design album coming out was a huge milestone for me. That one felt like, I don't know, it had a combination of lyrics and a combination of instrumentals, and they were using, this is one of my favorite albums of all time, not just a Jedi Mind Trick album. And man, they were dropping quotes from Planet of the Apes, and then there was quotes from the movie Pi, and I had just seen the movie Pi, and that was like at the top of my still is today one of my favorite movies of all time.
Me too.
This album in particular was like this weird turning point too. I think I was a senior in high school when this thing came out, and it kind of like changed a little bit of a trajectory where it made me feel like maybe not everything was going to be super commercial. Although I don't know if I would consider Jedi Mind Tricks to be like a commercial success, but they definitely got huge, and especially in this, like, I guess, conspiracy community, which is a cringe way to refer to it. But this album was kind of directed towards people that cared about like reptilians and shapeshifters and talking about the Pope doing like horrible things in an album. I felt like, man, this is actually way more hardcore than anything I had heard up to this point. And I know there was probably some stuff out there, but this one, it felt like it was like the most modern version of any of it.
Right. So, and then this album had Blood Runs Cold, which had Sean P on it. Rest in peace, Sean P. And Sean Price became my favorite rapper after this album. So it like introduced me to Sean Price Monkey Bars right here. And just like the album name is dope. Monkey bars, right? Like you're playing on monkey bars, but bars, like you spit in bars, because what happened was I only care about bars now. You know, I only care about lyrics. I want to like it's what I care about that mostly.
Well, Sean Price was one of the best lyricists to ever live, period. It's kind of sad that he's no longer here, but I think he was also in a group called, what was it, Helta Skelta? Was that the name of the group, or was that the name
He
of
was
the
in
album?
Boot Camp Click, and Helta Skelta was in Boot Camp Click
That's
with
right.
him. So Helta Skelta is a rapper as well, and they were in the Boot Camp Click, which is
Duck Down. It was all Duck Down Records.
It was, but then it changed later on. But yeah, and Sean Price, his flow it's unnatural. All other rappers all do the same. Do. Sean P would pause and do like kind of what Rick Ross would do, like a whoo, right? But Rick Ross is kind of melodic, right? Sean P, he was on a different level mentally in his raps.
I remember he had a Rap Center album that was next level. Like it was way ahead of its time, even though they kind of ruined every single track by saying Rap Center over and over with those horrible DJ watermarks that existed in like, man, they lasted from like the mid 2000s to like the late 2010s. I think that some of that is over now, but yeah, that was like the biggest part. And Sean Price was putting out a lot of mixtapes and compilations back to back for a very long time. I always liked that aspect too, like the mixtape culture. And was like datpiff.com and a whole bunch of other websites where you would go and find artists just because they were on. I guess that's sort of like a middle ground between the underground, where people are like completely out of the mainstream, and then you've got the absolute mainstream, and then you've got like this mixtape circuit. And the mixtape circuit kind of like jumps in between those two, where you've got like big artists that are putting on little artists, and then little artists that are remixing themselves into biggest artist tracks. And it's this like black market, right? Because a lot of the time the mixtapes are using uncleared samples and like songs that haven't been cleared. And I think that's another really awesome aspect of, I guess, punk too. That was big in punk and big in hip hop, with like, go ahead and record this or put this out or don't clear that sample. And that was part of the aesthetic of the song itself.
Yeah, and I got some of his lyrics here, but it just like, yeah, he's one of my favorite rappers.
Well, happy birthday, Doenut.
I'm better with mine. Sean Price, remember this time I'm all that. Jaw Tap, Pa Gregory Hines. Strapped for the war. I got a package of raw in the ass crack of the hall in the passenger door. Y'all whack should get slapped with the fall. Shit like that be attracting the law. Then he do. Word. Smoking, drinking, vice versa, smoking and drinking. I'm hoping these Lincolns act up. I ain't supposed to be stinking. And like, when this happened, like I only had a $5 because I was so addicted to smoking weed. I never had any money, but I would sometimes have a $5 because so when he's like hoping these Lincolns add up, I could relate to that because he was the brokest rapper, and I was like broke at that time, so I could like I felt that.
Well, because you always got to have 5 on it, so you always have to have a Lincoln somewhere stashed.
Yeah, that's true, right? Maybe that's what he meant, but like, yeah. And now, so I guess I can fast forward, but this album was crazy. Dark Lotus. This was
I've never seen this before.
This was crazy, bro. This was 6th grade, and this kind of took my life into a crazy realm. Any Juggalo, this is like was like one of the best albums ever created in the Juggalo world.
But this is an ICP album?
ICP, it's Dark Lotus, it's their rap group, right? It's like Wu-Tang. So there's ICP, Twisted, Blaze, and this guy Mars, who was bringing the Order of the Golden Dawn magic into the album. And I didn't know this until probably like a month ago, where he did an interview and said that that's what he was doing, because it's like the most brutal, sick, like lyrics in it. It's like, it's Dark Lotus. So that
I'll have
was
to check
crazy.
this. I'd never even heard of this before.
Yeah, you might like it, but it's it had a huge influence on my life. At 6th grade. But now my favorite rapper is BLP Kosher, and he's got an album.
Do you know what that stands for? What's
It's his
BLP
name.
stand for?
BLP
Okay.
is like his name. I don't know his name, but this album is called Bars. Like we were talking about Monkey Bars with Sean Price. Well, BLP Kosher, his album is called Bars Mitzvah. So I thought that was pretty clever. And like when I first heard him, it's younger music. You know, I just had my birthday yesterday, my real birthday. And when I first heard it and saw it, I was like, oh, this is mumble rap and silly. That's cool. And moved on. But then I went back to it because he said some lyrics, and I was like, well, you know what? He said this, and that was pretty good lyric. He said, I ain't Irish, but my money Dublin. And I was like, damn, that was the sickest lyric I've heard in a long time. I haven't heard a lyric like that in a while.
I like it because sometimes these lyrics are like stand-up routines. Like some of the lines are just like really good jokes that you can see delivering.
Oh, look, see, I got Heavenly Divine right here from the album.
This is the one that I was talking about from Violent by Design.
Another sacrificial lamb that died at the hands of hologram. Send him to the dungeon and bludgeon his fucking clan. Holy land, who spit the lie shit, the do or die hell, Del Jedi mind shit. Yeah. I mean, like, it's like, if you're into this,
that's
like,
the one, man. Like, if you had to listen to one, if you've never heard of Jedi Mind Tricks ever before, this is the track that I would probably recommend.
Yeah, but like,
you don't like it, you won't like it.
Yeah, if you're like religious, maybe like it could be offensive though. Just like, but what we're talking about is
only if you're Catholic, I think.
Yeah, but I mean the way that he rapped, yeah. So I had that pulled up in lyrics. I didn't really scatter everything, but right now BLP Kosher, his album Bars Mitzvah is my favorite right now.
Is that what you're listening to right now? Like what do you got on repeat this week?
Yeah, what I got on repeat is my classics that I listen to, which is Sean Price, Vinny Paz, Nonfiction, Ill Bill, but now I've added BLP Kosher into that bundle of 5. And I even went and saw him perform his first concert. Not his first concert, but his first tour. And I was the oldest one there, you know. Everyone was like 20 years old. And I felt old, but I also felt cool because I'm still like a little like hip, I guess. So it made me kind of feel like cool. But his lyrics, if you're into lyrics, I like it a lot.
So BLP kosher. That's the new playlist.
You see, I have this still tipping up here as well. And this is what I want played at my funeral when I get put into the ground. I want them
You
to
gonna
play
have your
it.
casket up on hydraulics?
No, I just want, I like at
They
the
can hit a
funeral,
switch.
I want them to play the violin, tipping on fofos. Now look who creeping, look who crawling, still balling in the mix. It's that 6'6" long. Oh, you got rid of it. Sticking your chick, pulling tricks, looking slick all the time when I'm flipping. Boss sipping, car dipping, grand wood grain gripping. But this is why I wear my glasses, my Gucci shades, is because of this song. So it has the influence right here. Oh, Gucci shades up in my braids when I escalade. Like, yeah.
This was I can't even understate how huge that was in Texas at the time. I remember them coming through because I worked at a print shop. Like one, I worked at Kinko's and I worked at another little small print shop, and I remember them coming in. Paul Wall was coming in and remaking copies of his Bart Simpson mixtape, or at least some like him and part of his crew. And that was how they would just like explode it for. Lil Flip did the same thing. Lil Flip would just go and filled his trunk, and I think he sold something like 20,000 albums out of his trunk, and just because of that turned into like actual labels hearing about they're making this grassroots success, and then they're interested because they're like, oh, they're making money, all right, I'll get in on that. So that became sort of a trend though, and that was like this whole aspect of people would pull up with a trunk full of CDs like left and right. You'd go to a show and everyone in the parking lot is like selling their albums. Like you can't get around it.
Yeah. And so like also I before, you know, I know I've been going on them rants, but I would just want to bring up a couple more people is Gucci Man back in 2005, 2008, huge influence because it the imagery of Gucci Man was like he had a song, I made 100,000 in the trap house, right? And that was like when you have a friend who made $100,000 in the trap house, that was like, whoa, it was like the coolest thing. And then when you have like 5 friends who all made $100,000, I mean, it's an experience that's weird when you're like a teenager, you know, prior to being an adult. And so it's kind of like it seemed very authentic. And then it became, in my opinion, an archetype. Maybe the whole time it was an archetype.
I mean, I would make that argument that it's always been an archetype, at least all the way back to Hateberry Ash, or Ashbury Hate, where basically the CIA was setting up these little safe houses that anyone could come through, and they were doing that to get in with the counterculture. And then you also notice all the freaking ties between military intelligence in particular and rock stars, right? And the same exact thing too, military intelligence and children's books, military intelligence and cartoons. It's like, especially when it comes to American media, if you start following those threads and chasing the money, at the bottom of all of it, you're almost always going to come up with military intelligence. And I would say that all of the like the trap house and all the rap, like where are they getting the drugs and the guns from? Like they're probably getting that from the CIA. Like that's the actual source of everything that they're talking about flipping and, you know, making this money and making money in the streets. Like the actual source of that is probably the CIA.
And I gotta I'll end it with this, just how everyone kind of sees why I'm the way I am too. Rest in peace, Mac Dre. I mean, Mac Dre right there. I mean, amazing lyrics. Lyrics went so hard, it was too hard for the radio. His lyrics. And not going into any of is there any connections to the military stuff that you're talking about, but just my own branding, because the whole time I did my donut thing, I try to come with an element of swag or style. I try to be dipped in butter.
And I got a couple other ones here too. I hope I hope
Yeah,
you.
sorry. So like I know like I didn't go too hard into the lyrics or whatever, but that was my catalog of influence of where if people are like, what did you what who's this guy? This guy be talking shit. I'll slap that fool in the comment. Let's just see some crazy comments and it's like,
Oh, someone's asking thoughts on Suicide Boys.
oh, they're very popular with like the youth. I'm in recovery.
It's such a weird. They're very popular with the youth.
Yeah,
That's my thoughts.
I know that they took a lot of their influence from like 3-6 Mafia and all that. But when
I
they were
love me some
coming,
Suicide Boys.
yeah, I'm in recovery, so I know a lot of the youth that go there like it.
So this one right here, Legend of the Mask and the Assassin, is DJ Muggs and Sick Jacken, and Sick Jacken is part of Psycho Realm, and Psycho Realm is sort of an offshoot of Cypress Hill, or it's like kind of like you've got Kill Army and Gravediggers, and that's sort of like the Wu affiliate, right? They're like ancillary to the Wu-Tang Clan, similar to how Sick Jacken and Psycho Realm are sort of ancillary to Cypress Hill a little bit, although they each have their own little fan bases. But this album in particular is absolutely like groundbreaking. Like, and a lot of people have never heard of it before. I highly recommend it. And DJ Muggs is the DJ from Cypress Hill. But here's
DJ Muggs also did Kill Devil Hills with Ill Bill, which was like got all the Illuminati stuff up on there.
And I think that was similar into this series. This was the first one that I came across where DJ Muggs was linking up with another artist and basically talking about conspiracy theories. So this was the first big one that I had come across, and this was sometime after I was aware of Jedi Mind Tricks and Army of the Pharaohs and a lot of them that are kind of in that camp. And this, in my mind, this goes on that mixtape. Like if you've got an Army of the Pharaohs and a Jedi Mind Trick mixtape, you should definitely add this to it. But like the names here, The Initiation, Mask and the Assassin, Land of Shadows, God's Banker, Reptilian Renaissance, you know what I mean? Like just the names of some of these songs. So like this one is called God's Banker. And this is actually really interesting because I don't know of any other song that exists that's specifically about like this very historical conspiracy theory. It's called the P2 Lodge, or the Propaganda Do Lodge. And it meant, this is the song lyrics right here, and it shouts the guy out. Roberto Calvi from the P2 Lodge got attention from the beast trying to be too large. He was God's banker in the southeast of Italy. So this is all 100% legit. This is Roberto Calvi right here. And he was legitimately God's banker. He worked directly for the Holy See. And this guy also, within that Propaganda Do Lodge, this is a Masonic lodge in Italy, founded in the late 1800s. And it was essentially linked to all of this money running between the Italians, the Pope, even the United States CIA gets into this. This actually also, believe it or not, this links to hip hop because they get tied into the funding of the Iran-Contra war in sort of like a sideway. This guy was also Francesco Crispi. He was in the Propaganda Do Lodge. And the reason that he's so important is because he was a very close friend of Giuseppe Mazzini. And Giuseppe Mazzini comes up whenever the Albert Pike World War III stuff comes up, because the rumor is that after Adam Weishaupt dies or leaves and he gets shunned, that the Bavarian Illuminati switches hands and it goes to Giuseppe Mazzini like many years later. So any connection at all with Giuseppe Mazzini is interesting and relevant to conspiracy theories. And this is a direct tie between Mazzini and this Propaganda Do Lodge and the Holy See, the Vatican bank. So this gives a little bit of credit to some of those really deep conspiracy theories. And again, this is just a song on a rap album. So I get some of the criticism of rap's crap and it just rots your brain and it's all about money and hoes and clothes. But then you've got songs like this that are legitimately giving you a straight up history lesson about real information, real names, dates, times. So this is what I really found sort of inspiring, especially in 2007. I was like, I was happy that someone else out there was doing what was kind of in my head. And of course, it comes from this angle. Here's
That
another
ties all
one that
into Operation Gladio as well.
well, Gladio was also related to, you know, the Vatican, like the rat lines was also related to all this.
Right.
It gets deep. It gets deep, especially for like a rap album. This one might not be as esoteric, but man, this is crazy. I swear that I wasn't planning on just pulling up albums from 1997, but I feel like 1997 was a magical year, man, for all these
Yeah.
different albums to have been coming out like this. Maybe the maybe the next one we do, it should just be albums from 1997 and see what other gems are out there. But this is the first. I understand this as the first appearance of
Kool
Kool
Keith.
Keith, yeah, as like a solo album, and it's got linked to Dan the Automator, and Dan the Automator was in the Funky Homo Sapien and Deltron 3030. He
And he
also
got the
does
Room 223.
yeah, like this. It's like one big group of all these guys, and the one that I pull up on this whole album, which is very abstract. Like so, this is the Blue Flowers. I had the Dr. Octagon Wikipedia article pulled up, but he's basically a like interdimensional psychedelic freelance gynecologist from the future or something. Like it's got this weird backstory, but there's this particular song on it called Blue Flowers. And this,
Right.
if anyone played, I think it was on one of the Tony Hawk games, or it might have been on in a really good sleeper on the PlayStation 1. There was a skating game called Thrasher that I think had Blue Flowers on it. But Blue Flowers is an incredibly deep dive because I don't know if you ever seen the movie Scanner Darkly, Philip K. Dick. The whole movie is about these blue flowers, or I think it's called Compound D, where they extract some weird drug from these blue flowers that keeps people in this like constant state of like slumber, essentially. And the whole concept of a blue flower is this sort of like they call it a motif of Western art, but the blue flower represents not just like romanticism, but this unachievable, this like infinitely out of grasp concept. So this is this one quote: the blue flower is a watchword and a sacred symbol of the Romantic school, meant to symbolize deep and sacred longings of a poet's soul. Romantic poetry deals with longing, not a definite formulated desire for some object, but a dim, mysterious aspiration, a trembling unrest, a vague sense of kinship with the infinite, and a consequent dissatisfaction with every form of happiness the world has to offer. This is the real concept of romanticism. It's not about like, you know, I'm romantic because I love you, girl, and that's all I can keep you on my mind. The romantic aspect of it is that like you love somebody so much that you'll never fully be able to express it. Like you'll never be able to fully realize the amount of love you actually feel, and that's what makes like that bleeding heart romantic mean everything. It's because like they've got more love than they will ever be able to express, and it's almost a tragedy in itself. And that wrapped up into like a drug, right? As these blue flowers and Philip K. Dick. And even on the Wikipedia article, they mention all the different mentions of blue flowers. There's Philip K. Dick's mention of it. They talk about in Tennessee Williams' Glass Menagerie, all these different references to a blue flower. They tend to mean the same kind of thing. So it's a deep concept. The lyrics are all over the place. Highly recommended. It's really hard to describe Kool Keith in any setting.
Automator, define the laws of nature.
All right, here's a super deep one. This one I remember coming out. Man, this is nuts. I swear, I didn't plan for every album to be 1997. Here's another one, man. Rakim, 18th Letter. This one, it feels like required like homework, required reading. Like everybody on the planet, even if you hate rap and you think that it has no merit whatsoever musically, this particular song called The Mystery, Who is God? I almost just want to read like the whole thing start to end. I'm not going to do that, but
Do it.
do it. Well, let's do the verses. So this song, The Mystery, Who is God? It
You
is
gotta do it.
literally
You gotta rap it though.
Well, you're gonna have to rap it if we're doing the rapping part.
This is your song.
I can
This is your
slam
song.
poetry it. I'm not, dude. It would feel like a complete disgrace to try and repeat anything Rakim has done. So we'll just do his honor right by I'll read it as like a true academic.
Fair enough.
So this is Rakim's explanation of the origin of life, like straight up evolution, the soul, the Big Bang theory, everything. So I really, if you don't think rap has any merit, give it one shot here. Just hearing some of these lyrics. In eternal blackness, midst of darkest night, proteins and minerals exist in specks of light. Solids, liquid gases, sparks of light, infinite lengths and widths, depths and heights. Like right here, he's describing like all of math and spatial perception. No beginning or ending, the 7 dimensions, enough space for more than 1 million worlds and inventions. Travel through time with enough room to be the womb of the Most High's great mind, which he will soon make shine. Intelligent elements in sight he gather. In the realms of relativity, electricity struck matter. Energy explode, reload to keep releasing, atoms by the millions, till the numbers increasing. Till it was burning, kept turning itself to the source. The hotter his thoughts gave the center more force. We're talking about forming the actual earth at this point, right? With this molten core. He gave birth to the sun, which would follow his laws, caused by mental intercourse, who is God. And then it goes into this, he's basically saying, carefully, I dropped this degree, scientifically, realistically, if you can see, it'll solve the mystery. The answer resolves around your history. And then here's it keeps, man, it's like 3 verses, 4 verses. But like he breaks down the entire formulation of religion, God, matter, electricity, starts to breathe deep in the dark seas, to lay the clays to form land and expand. Like this is basically restating the Bible along with a whole bunch of different sort of scientific observations. He's mentioning Revelations, Genesis, St. John, Luke. Like this isn't BS. Like this is really, really deep and incredibly like the merit of the music of Rakim is worth it. Like he's one of the best to ever do it. So I don't know if I even done that half the justice, but if anyone's like, I'll never listen to a rap song in my life, at least listen to this one and read the lyrics. It's pretty deep. And then I wanted to end it on Prodigy for a number of reasons. One of them is that his next this was supposed to be one of 3 different albums, right? It was going to be this album. He had another one that had a really relevant title. I can't remember exactly what it was. And the first one was The Book of the Dead. And he only released this one, and then he choked on an egg is the official story. Is that he went to eat breakfast and had a hard-boiled
just
egg.
dropped all this Illuminati stuff too.
He had just and he's the one, the Illuminati want my mind, soul, and my body. That's a Prodigy lyric from a Mobb Deep song, right? I think it was on like an.
They
LL
were
Cool
18
J.
years old, I think, when
Yeah,
they
like
released
mad young to be talking about Illuminati at 18, and you didn't have the benefit of hearing it in a rap song because Prodigy hadn't released it yet. You know what I mean? So to be aware and singing about the Illuminati back then would have been insane. But he had this album called the Hegelian Dialectic, aka Book of Revelation, and it's got a bunch of different really good songs on it. This one, Mystic, is pretty good. He's talking about God in the flesh, lineage is ancient. There's a little bit of like 5%er stuff in here. And he talks about my stars got 6 points, so I burn brighter than any pentagram on Hollywood's sidewalk. I love that line right there. But the interesting aspect of it, and he's got tyranny, and it just talks about 9/11. He's got this line that says, planes crash in the towers and the buildings crash to the ground, including one that wasn't hit by anything at all. Like such an awesome intro to bust it out with. And if anyone's not familiar with Hegelian dialectic, this is, it's cool because if you go to Hegel now, right here's the article on the Hegelian dialectic, and it actually has for the Prodigy album, click here. So currently on the real wiki page for Hegelian dialectic, it links to Prodigy and Mobb Deep. So that's kind of cool. But the way that the Prodigy wiki article explains Hegelian dialectic is kind of interesting. It says the album named after a philosophical concept called the Hegelian dialectic. It's an argument process explaining the process of history being a conflict of ideas where interactions between thesis and antithesis or antithesis create synthesis. This is the logical foundation for Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels' theory of history and class struggle, where the conditions of a societal production develop under oppressed classes necessary to overthrow the oppressor class. Now, it's a bunch of words and academic phrases, but I've got a couple graphics here that are, I think, pretty decent at explaining it. This is a concept that takes people entire lifetimes to fully digest what Hegelian dialectic and just Hegel's philosophy in general. But this is sort of what makes the Hegelian dialectic interesting, is that here's classic logic, and the way that classic logic would describe something. This is very simplified, but it's like, okay, you started at A and then you get to B. And the way that you get from A to B to C is almost as like linear line, as if it's like a path that you choose to go down. But what Hegelian dialectic says is that nothing ever happens in a straight line, and there's always like an ebb and a flow. So, for example, here's the A starting point. If you imagine this is like the center, right? If you want to get over here to B, and you want to have control over B, you actually have to understand that the tide is going to turn, right? So let's say that this is like a conservative political ideology. If you want it to remain conservative all the way, let's say this is like a 50-year gap in time, right? If you want it to remain conservative for 50 years, you're going to actually have to let it swing to the left or swing to the right and become more right or more left, just so that the natural flow of society will push it back over to the center again, as opposed to letting it like naturally meander over there, because then you don't have as much control. So here's another version of it. And I swear this won't turn into like a philosophy lecture, but this is the way that I understand it. Old Thesis. Let's say that this is like hippie culture, right? Old Thesis is hippie culture. So because of the rise of hippie culture, you get people that with an emerging antithesis of hippie culture. You've got like the yuppies, right? The 80s, like the Gordon Geckos. They sort of rise as this opposition to like, screw all those hippies. I can't believe the world is, everyone's just free love, and they don't want jobs, and they don't want to put shoes on. We're going to do the exact opposite. We're going to focus on material gains and wealth and turn that into pop culture. And it does happen, right? But then what happens is that after this comes to a head, after enough people become like against this hippie concept, that's what you would call the maturation of the antithesis, and then this becomes the synthesis. So this line, imagine everything under this line, it says quantitative changes. So that means like the number of people that are starting to feel a certain way is growing. And once it hits a critical mass, known as this crisis phase, now there's so many people that are anti-hippie, they finally do something about it. And that's this line that's growing up here. And this is where it transitions to a quantitative, meaning lots and lots of people, to a qualitative, meaning now they're doing something to change reality. So when that hits, it goes from quantitative, lots of people, to qualitative, doing a thing. And now this is the synthesis. The synthesis is, okay, now yuppie culture is the thing. Now it's all about American Psycho and Huey Lewis and the News, and it's hip to be square. This is the new sort of counter culture becoming mainstream culture. But that happens, right? And now you've got all these like 90s skaters and like anarchy punk, and they're like, screw that, man. My dad's a yuppie, and I'm sick of that. And then it just starts all over again. The cycle is like, okay, now when there's enough people that are against their yuppie dads, then now the mainstream culture becomes Nirvana and Kurt Cobain and Jinko jeans and like all of that, like alternative rock, and the cycle just completes. But if you've got control over that, if you actually if I was in control of the hippie culture and I'm in control of the yuppie culture, then I can kind of steer around all this, and I can direct and know where this synthesis takes place.
Right.
So anyways, pretty freaking deep for a rap
You
album.
you broke that down pretty nicely.
It's a really deep topic that's, again, it takes like people go to college for multiple credits just to learn about Hegelian dialectic. So it's an incredible topic, and it's an absolute shame and a huge red flag that Prodigy was taken out by a freaking egg when he was releasing an album about the Hegelian dialectic. He was one of the rappers that introduced me to the Illuminati, so it's wild that he went out writing an album about it.
Yeah, and the egg symbolism too is you got the Orphic egg. There's a lot of egg in symbology
So
or symbolism, whatever.
So that was my 5 albums. You brought up 5 or so albums.
I brought up a
I think
bunch.
that was pretty dope, man.
I don't know. I kind of just wanted to kind of go through.
No, I like going through and seeing what you were listening to, because again, it's wild to hear like your version of middle school and high school music versus my version of middle school and high school music. Because even when I was growing up, I mean, like Vanilla Ice is a joke now, right? But he was like the main. Like,
No,
he was
he's
the
a
ninja
Juggalo
in the movie,
too.
bro.
I saw him at the gathering of the Juggalos. He
And
performs there.
he's got a link to Suge Knight, so he also is kind of tangential to like the same exact industry that gave you Tupac and gave you all of the West Coast, you know, Death Row and stuff. I don't think they were homies or anything. I'm pretty sure that Suge Knight like held him out of a balcony by his feet, but still, like they were running in the same circles.
Yeah, no, it's interesting.
So we got a lot of really good suggestions out here. Mortal Technique is probably one of the hardest like conspiracy political rappers that's been really consistent. Like he's always been talking about like this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
We got Donut Dripped in Butter. And I wanted to shout out too to Esoteric Eddie just did an interview recently with I think Gore-Tex. I think it was with Gore-Tex or Sabak, who had the Art of Dying. Am I right? Is it the name of the album? And that one also has some really crazy esoteric symbolism that was weaved into it. So this is and I think that's nonfiction album members. So this is all like they've been doing this since the 90s. And here we
what I
are
like
20
about
years
it
later
too
talking about it.
is we're talking about independent artists that made their own moves. They weren't accepted in the industry. They printed like they went out and did their own moves, and they still do it today. And watching that, it's just entrepreneurship. You know, it's tight, and it goes into power dynamics too. The whole hip hop, watching it is like watching Game of Thrones. And you can kind of see this with, let's say, Young Jeezy and Gucci Man, how they had the beef, and who came up on top was Gucci Man through power dynamics. And then you can see this same power dynamics, especially with 50 Cent and Ja Rule. That was like a big thing, the king kill ritual, where he killed the king, Ja Rule, who was all over the place, and the 50 Cent came out, and then he took over that. And you can kind of see this in the underground hip hop world as well, with battle raps and beef. So warfare plays a huge role in hip hop, and you can learn a lot about life and that watching it. Like, okay, this guy, he did a battle rap, like Tom McDonald, for example. He's promoted by the Google algorithms heavily, and he did a lot of beefs on his rise up the power, and you could say he won those beefs in the raps, because like all the people he was dissing, you don't see them anymore, and so you could kind of see different power dynamics through the Machiavellian strategies of principalities, even if they're unfair advantages of, let's say, a Google algorithm promoting you. It still goes into the whole dynamics of power, even if it isn't skill. Like, this rapper's better, his diss was better, yeah, but maybe this guy's political moves were better, that brought him higher up in the industry. So it's kind of fun to watch and learn from different battles that happen in the hip hop world. with two different MCs. Is one going to just give up entirely, or is he going to rise up and make some new albums and drop some new stuff? So that kind of stuff really inspires me, like learning from the mistakes of others, or their successes in an entrepreneurial sense. Of when I was doing my videos, whenever you start a YouTube channel, you're going to get haters in the beginning, and that's just a test to see if you could run over them in a sense and continue. And a lot of people won't continue their dream, whatever it is, because especially what we do, Paranoid, we come out here, we make some art, we put out, whatever we want. Who has the balls to do that? Who has the balls to be criticized, to be like, so someone like I go out and make a video and it doesn't do well. Everyone laughs at me. Family won't talk to me. Yeah. And but then I'll go do it again. I don't care. I'm gonna keep on going. But the people laughing at me or you or whoever, they try to do it one time, or do they have the balls to try it and maybe get no views, right? Very discouraging. Or get people laughing at them, or friends and family stop talking to you because you're doing what you love to do. To persist through that is an entrepreneur spirit, and it's a spiritual spirit as well. And like, so I like to just look at all these different aspects of people, from hip hop to politics.
Well, you're right. The entrepreneurial spirit is an interesting one, in particular, like in all of music, but in rap music in particular, because it's like, man, what again, when I was trying to make it in the music industry, like that's what I wanted to do with the rest of my life, until I got a little taste of it and I realized that it wasn't really my thing. But the whole way up there, it was becoming really, really obvious, which part of the reason that I started to get salty about it, that it wasn't necessarily the musicians that had the best music ever. It was never about them. It was always about the ones that had I mean, it sounds so, cliche, but like had the connections, or very often, man, it came down to things like they showed up earlier, they showed up on time, or like they actually did what they said, or they had the money to pay for the studio session, and like they didn't bring their friends to the session with them, and they didn't cause problems, like all those different things. You could kind of see, at least in my mind, the absolute best artist that I ever worked with in a recording studio, as an engineer or a producer or anything. They were always the most like unreliable people. They were always like, they felt like the least on like a hinge, you know what I mean? Like it was very unpredictable. And whenever they did show up, if you happen to get them in the right mood, and they weren't like, half there, like half asleep, or paying attention to something else going on in their life, you had them in the moment and they were in the zone, it would be like magic. But you would have to be able to do that consistently. So then what would happen is, if you got one person that can come reliably and record an album, every 6 months, and put it out and do this, and not get upset because their favorite song got cut by the label because the label thought that it wouldn't do it, like all those things, it becomes more and more of like, can you play by the rules? And if you can play by the rules, then you get invited on the tour. And then if you do well on the tour, and you show that you can play by the rules in live, in a live scenario with other people, dynamic environment, then it keeps bringing you up and up. And at like the very low levels, all those like truly ingenious people, they get weeded out almost immediately. Like the third time you don't show up on time to the recording studio, no matter what the excuse is, that would just permanently blackball somebody from a music industry. And I saw it happen so damn often. And
not just the music industry, any industry. It's a
right. Yeah. But I guess that one of the nuanced lies, or like the naivete of me growing up, is I just assumed that music like cut through all that. That if you had the merit, like I figured music was a pure meritocracy. If you could sit down and write the best song, and you could write like make it sound the best, then you would just inherently become popular, because someone would hear it, and of course they would want to share it around. But it doesn't work like that. because you know you don't have enough friends that are gonna send your CD to every single college station DJ out there. But you know who can is someone that's got that payola going and that has all those commercial connections. So this is it ties back into exactly what you were saying. It's like an entrepreneurial spirit that makes you a successful musician more than having any sort of talent in music. Like it obviously helps if you've got both. That's when you've got these big moguls that'll turn the game on its head. But there are so many musicians out there that are probably better than anything you've ever heard, but you'll never hear it because they don't necessarily want to make a buck, and it's sad, but that's how it works.
But from us being in the music industry, right, and working with ego and all that, it really transitions so easily into the podcasting sphere because it's the exact same game with all the hip hop artists being a bunch of girls, like not in a bad way, like girls out there. I'm talking about like that was bad wording, but being like a bunch of like little kids mentally, like egotistically working with artists is just all ego, right? And I'm talking about like you got these gangster big buff rappers, and I'm saying they're like girls. So I was just trying to.
I love the idea too, though, that the rappers can see the egos they create if they're like hyper aware is like a champion, like an egregore that they've created that they put out on the stage that does all their fighting for them. So when you see like battle rappers, like part of me, it's almost like it's almost like a Power Rangers fight scene, right? Like you zoom out and there's two big dudes in suits, you know what I mean? And it's like it's not the rappers that are fighting, it's these crazy, huge, larger than life, like, Voltron style guys that are, and that's what are going back and battling with each other.
Yes. And but on a business like level, with the egos, you get that in the podcasting stuff too. And that's why I think I was so successful maneuvering through podcasting with a lot of people, is because of all the stuff I've learned through mixtapes and working. I mean, I've produced over, I would say, 2 to 1,000 individual corporation businesses, like done business with people and podcast and networked and all that. It's an easier transition from that into the whole podcasting realm.
There's a lot of correlations with it, and another thing too about that like battle mentality that always was interesting to me because I remember like Battle of the Bands, but Battle of the Bands was really just a bunch of different local bands would go up, and then there would usually be like radio scouts or someone there, and the premise was that if you performed really well at a Battle of the Bands, then you might get invited to like have your song on the radio or something would kind of come out of it. But it was never really like band A versus band B. It was just kind of like how much did the crowd cheer for one versus the other. But when it came to like rap battles, like this was literally that guy is talking about that guy. He's saying all sorts of horrible things about him and his mom and his sister, and it was very personal. Like these guys are actually fighting each other. And I had never seen that in any other musical genre. Like even in those kind of battle of the bandsy sort of situations, it almost never felt like they were writing songs about the other band to like fight in a live environment and have to do it kind of on your toes. And I feel like I would love to see that in the jazz world or in like the pop world or something, right? Like if there was the equivalent of like a Taylor Swift, sparring against Kanye or something, but it wasn't like rap battle. I don't know what that would look like, but it would be amazing. And it's one of the many different parts of rap in particular that's so unique that I don't think exists in other sort of like genres, because it's not just like a style of music. It's this whole other thing that comes with it.
Yeah. There comes a power dynamic too. It's like within it, like warfare.
Yeah, guitar battles are a good example, and drum offs too are a really good example. But that I don't think those exist as much anymore. And like I guess Kill Tony is like one of the only places, and it's kind of like a stand-up show, but they have Mexican drum offs every once in a while. and I love them, man. Like I love seeing like two creatives go at it and battle each other, because so much of the like the battling we see now, it's all like sports or physically based, or it's like trivia kind of stuff. It's very like moat rememory type of things. But to do it in like music or like even art, there was like a really awesome art show for a while. It was hosted by that chick from Sex and the City. I can't remember her name, but she hosted it, and was actually like artists would all have to do the same thing and kind of like get judged on each other, sort of like an ink master, right? That might be the closest that we've got in other like non-musical genres, but like ink master style competition, I wish there was
I would
more
say
of
like
that.
WCW or
That's a great example.
backyard wrestling.
That's like actor battles, right? Like I can act better than you.
Yeah. But the only other thing would be maybe like a real boxing match or something.
I mean, they had that, right? There was a small moment in time when rappers were actually like fighting each other, and there was the Def Jam game. Do you remember when that came out? That was big when like there was wrestling games and there was a bunch of fighting games, and then there was like a Def Jam game that basically combined WCW with all of the rappers, and you could like it was a little bit of both. It was a very special moment in time.
And then they also had that one. Remember that PlayStation rap game?
Parappa the Rappa?
Yeah, Parappa the
Yeah.
Rappa.
Hell yeah, I do.
That was
So
tight.
we'll have to maybe we'll have to play Parappa the Rappa, man, on like an upcoming episode.
Yeah, or Dance Dance Revolution.
Oh yes, we're doing fat battles in 2024.
Yeah, fat battles with the dropping testosterone.
All right, man. We'll wrap this up here. Leave a little bit of sauce for the next one. So where can people find you in case they don't know who you are and they've lived under a rock?
You can find me at DOE Doe Nut NUT Donut.
And there's a little dash in there between DOE.
Oh, on the
dash
website, yeah.
NUT.
On the website, there's a dash. Look at that. Oh,
That was another 97 thing, wasn't it? Tech Decks? That was
yeah,
a late 90s thing.
Mm.
I was never as good at it. And then you do a kickflip right at the edge. So I'm Paranoid American. I'll still be Paranoid American tomorrow, hopefully. I don't think I'm ever going to get less paranoid or less American. If I was going to get less of either of those, it would be the American part, but I don't think that's going to happen either.
You've been imprinted.
I've been imprinted too much.
You can't get rid of
and
it.
I love it though. I love part of my programming. Just like I love some of the rap albums that I grew up with, even if I know that, Disney programmed to put it into my head. I'm okay with that.
Right. And also like with the imprinting, these albums, right? Even if I don't vibe with the lyrics anymore or messages or whatever it is, it's been imprinted. And if you want to hit peak performance and get in the zone, you got to go back to your imprinting of music. That's when Michael Jordan's head coach, Michael Jordan, when he was playing a game and he needed to get in the zone, his head coach he'd call and he would say, don't listen to any of that new music. Play something from a long time ago when you were a kid, and you'll know what song it is because you'll smile when you hear it. That'll get you in the zone. And I always thought that was interesting. That's it.
That's classic NLP anchoring technique.
It is? For real?
100%. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to interview you on that.
Yeah, you'd be a monster, man. If you applied a little bit more NLP, it would be nuts. Because I mean, I really do think that Jordan Maxwell just like
he got me under
NLP by default. Like he didn't have to go to a class; he just did it. Like he was just born with it. But that's what NLP is. It's like patterning after people that do it naturally and figuring out what the hell the special sauce is. So that'll be a future episode. Appreciate everyone in the comments that came out and hung out. Happy birthday to Doenut, by the way. And with that, we'll play you out with the Sound Science intro. Thank you, everybody.